Hi there. Let's talk about something that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. Feelings at work. You've probably heard the advice, bring your whole self to work. And maybe you thought, great, does that mean I can cry in the break room? Have a meltdown in the Monday morning meeting? Or share my deepest childhood trauma during the quarterly review? No, that's not what it means. And honestly, that confusion right there is exactly why so many leaders are either suppressing everything or oversharing everything. And both are exhausting and, honestly, not that helpful. So today, we're clearing this up. We're talking about why emotions need to be at work, what whole self actually means, and how to work with your feelings instead of pretending they don't exist or letting them run the show. Because your feelings aren't a liability. They're actually what creates vitality, wisdom, and real leadership. So let's go. Let's start with the biggest myth in corporate America, that being professional means being emotionless. You know the drill. You walk into the office, you put on your work face, you leave your feelings at the door. You're supposed to be calm, collected, rational. Basically, a robot and business casual. But here's what nobody tells you. Suppressing your feelings doesn't make you more professional. It just makes you more likely to snap at your computer when Outlook freezes for the third time that morning. And here's the kicker. Research actually shows that teams with emotional openness outperform teams that don't. Why? Because we're humans and not robots. We're wired for connection, and connection requires some level of emotional honesty. When you try to pretend your feelings don't exist, you're not just lying to everyone else, you're lying to yourself. And that takes energy, a lot of energy. Energy you could be using to actually lead, create, and solve problems. So no. Being professional doesn't mean being emotionless. It means being intentional with your emotions. That's a big difference. Okay, now let's tackle this bring your whole self to work thing, because I think this phrase has done more damage than good. When people hear whole self, they think it means bringing their unfiltered, unedited diary to the Monday meeting and sitting in their pajamas. Like, hi everyone, I'm having an existential crisis. My cat has a gluten allergy and I cried 3 times before breakfast. Let's talk about Q4 projections. No, that's not it. Whole self doesn't mean emotional dumping. It doesn't mean falling apart at your desk or oversharing every thought and feeling you have. That's not authenticity. That's just a lot. But here's what it does mean. You don't have to pretend your feelings don't exist. You can acknowledge stress, excitement, frustration, disappointment without making it everyone else's problem. It means you can say, I'm feeling overwhelmed today, without following it up with a 20-minute monologue about your childhood. It means you can be real without being a mess. Authenticity is about being honest with yourself and others in a way that's appropriate and intentional. It's not about vomiting your feelings all over the conference room floor. It's about knowing what you're feeling, naming it, and deciding how to work with it. That's the difference. And we're going to get into those steps right now. And when you can acknowledge your own feelings in that way, you're way more likely to be able to be with other people in a healthy way too. And that's where the magic happens in leadership. So why do feelings matter so much? Because they're the fuel for vitality and work. They're not just noise, they're data. When you're frustrated, that's a signal. Something needs to change. When you're excited, that's energy you can channel into your work. And when you're anxious, that's your system telling you to pay attention. Ignoring your feelings is like ignoring your car's check engine light. Sure, you can do it for a while, but eventually you're going to break down on the side of the highway. And it's going to cost you way more than if you just dealt with it in the first place. Here's what most people don't understand. Feelings have wisdom when we actually work with them, when we let them move through us instead of stuffing them down. They transmute. Anger can become clarity. Sadness can become empathy. Frustration can become innovation. And excitement can become momentum. But if you're constantly suppressing your feelings, you're cutting yourself off from that wisdom. You're cutting yourself off from the very thing that makes you human, that makes you creative, that makes you a leader people actually want to follow. Feelings aren't the problem. The problem is not knowing how to work with them. You may be now asking, well, how do I work with them? Great question. I'm so glad you asked. How do you work with your feelings without falling apart or oversharing? Here are 4 very practical and life-changing actions that will change everything for you. Number 1, name it. Just saying out loud, I'm feeling frustrated or I'm feeling anxious, can lower the intensity by about 40%. There's actual neuroscience behind this. It's called affect labeling. When you name the feeling, you activate the prefrontal cortex, which calms the amygdala, which is our fear center in our brain. Basically, you're telling your brain, I see you, I got this. You don't have to announce it to the whole office. You can just say it to yourself or to your work bestie or to your cup of coffee, whatever works. But the exercise is name it to tame it. Number 2, pause before reacting. When you feel something big coming up, anger, frustration, panic, take a breath. 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out. Literally. Just even one deep breath before you send that email or say that thing you're about to regret is so powerful. Do these a couple of times and focus on your breathing. Then and only then, decide if there's anything to do. Your future you will thank present you for not hitting reply all in that moment. I guarantee it. Number 3, share appropriately. It's okay to say, I'm feeling overwhelmed today, or I'm excited about this project. That's not oversharing. That's being real. What's not appropriate or helpful to you or the people around you is unloading your entire emotional history on your team. There's a difference between being authentic and making your feelings everyone else's responsibility. And the context we're in really matters. Becoming mature with our emotions is what allows us to be authentic and yet still fully present to the context and mindful of our impact on ourselves and others. And number 4, use your feelings as information. Ask yourself, what is this feeling trying to tell me? If you're frustrated, maybe a boundary needs to be set or reestablished. If you're anxious, maybe you need more clarity, more information. If you're excited, you can lean into that energy and engage. Just ask yourself, what is right about this feeling and what does it want me to know? Your feelings aren't random. They're trying to guide you. They want you to know something, so take a moment and listen to them fully. Here's what separates good leaders from great ones: emotional wisdom and emotional maturity. Great leaders don't pretend they don't have feelings. They don't put on a mask and act like everything's fine when it's not. They model what it looks like to be human and effective at the same time with feelings and emotions. When you as a leader can say, I'm disappointed with these results, and I believe we can figure this out, you're showing your team that feelings don't have to derail progress. They can actually fuel it. When you acknowledge stress without spiraling into panic, you're teaching your team resilience. And when you can celebrate wins with genuine excitement, you're creating a culture where people actually want to show up. And let's be real, nobody wants to work for a robot. They want to work for a human who gets it, who understands that work results can be tricky, that deadlines can be stressful, and that sometimes things don't go as planned. The leaders who create the most trust, the most loyalty, and the most innovation, they're the ones who know how to work with their emotions, not against them. They're the ones who understand that feelings aren't weakness. They're actually wisdom. So let's talk about what happens when you actually let yourself feel at work, when you stop running from your emotions and start working with them. This is where the magic happens. This is where feelings transmute into something more. That frustration you've been pushing down, when you actually acknowledge it, it can become clarity about what needs to change. Maybe it's a process that's broken. Maybe it's a boundary that needs to be set. That anxiety you're trying to ignore, when you sit with it just for a minute, it might be telling you that you need more information or that you care deeply about getting whatever this thing is right. That anger that's been simmering, when you let it move through you, not at someone, but through you, it can become the fuel for innovation, for standing up for what matters, for standing up for the things that are important, and for finally saying what needs to be said. This is what I mean by vitality. When you suppress your feelings, you're suppressing your life force. You're making yourself smaller, duller, less alive. But when you let yourself feel, when you work with your emotions instead of against them, you come alive. You have more energy, more creativity, and more presence. And that's what people want to follow. Not the perfectly polished leader who never shows a crack, the real one, the one who's fully alive. So here's what I want you to take away from this. 1, your feelings aren't unprofessional. They're human, and humans run workplaces. 2, whole self at work doesn't mean emotional dumping. It means being honest without making your feelings everyone else's problem. 3, feelings have wisdom. When you work with them, they transmute into clarity, energy, and real leadership. And 4, the most powerful thing you can do as a leader is model what it looks like to be fully human and fully effective at the same time. No need to be a robot, unless it's on the dance floor. Start naming your feelings, start working with them. Start letting them guide you instead of control you. Because when you do, you don't just become a better leader, You become more alive. And that's what creates real impact. All right, I want to hear from you. What's the hardest part about being real with your feelings at work? Drop it in the comments. Let's talk about it. And if this resonated with you, share it with another leader who needs to hear it. Because we need more humans leading, not robots. Join me here each week for more great tips on how to thrive in the 9 to 5 and beyond. Happy thriving.